Hello, my name is Keith Karras, Automation and Networking Specialist for WINKLE Electric, and today I'll be performing a technical presentation on FactoryTalk Network Manager. FactoryTalk Network Manager, what that is designed to help manage OT networks in a growing IIoT environment. And today, the features that I'm going to go through is how to discover a switch, assign a license, and explain the features that come with utilizing a license with FactoryTalk Network Manager. And as my setup continues here, I will be using a Stratix 5700 switch to demo the product. Some prerequisites for the switch that we need to identify before we even get going with FactoryTalk Network Manager is the firmware requirements. The switch is required to run 15.2 3EA1. I know that's a mouthful, or later, but you can refer to your Rockwell automation knowledge base for any details that may incur to see if you're able to use Network Manager. Some of the supported switches that will be on these is most of the Stratix line of switches if they meet the firmware requirements, and also the lightly managed 2500 switch is a part of this. Third-party switches currently to date are not supported. However, there is some Cisco IOSs that are capable of being able to be used with the FactoryTalk Network Manager software. So, as I said, today what I'm going to show is how to assign a license to the switch and some of the steps that we need to take so that we can start adding assets and monitor the network. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to enable our Stratix 5700 switch to accept the license. So what I have here is here's our Stratix 5700 switch. I'm using the IP address of 192.168.1.1, and I apologize for this. The 5700 device manager is a little slow. So the first thing that we need to do is we are going to utilize what is called SNMP to allow for an asset discovery within Network Manager. And all SNMP is, it stands for Simple Network Management Protocol. It's an internet protocol where basically we have an MIB that discover OIB objects. It's an open protocol, and a lot of third-party software is used to monitor this, so that's what we're going to set up first. And from here, we're actually going to go to Configure, and we're going to go to SNMP. Now, we are going to use SNMP version 2C. On this switch. It is capable to enable SNMP version 3, which is currently the latest and greatest out there, but you have to go through the command line interface, and just for demoing purposes and simplicity, we're going to use the 2C, which we just have to add a community string. So as you can see here, by default, the Stratix has SNMP already enabled. So what we need to do is we need to go and we need to add a community string. So what I'll do here is I'll come to add, and we'll just give this read-only capabilities. I'm going to call the string WINKLE. I'm going to hit OK. So as you can see from there, we now have a community as under WINKLE in there, and I'm going to refresh. This is just a test for me to make sure that my changes have been made properly. So once this comes back up, okay, we have verification, so now we have the community string WINKLE in here. So that enables SNMP for the discovery part of it. What we also need is to enable either a telnet or an SNMP connection. Now these are just a telnet and SSH are ways that allow a connection terminal to communicate via text-oriented communication. For this case, I'm going to use telnet. But you can also use SSH to configure these as well. To access this in the Stratix, you go to Admin and Access Management. And like I said, once this pops up, we're going to enable the Telnet client to allow us to write licensing text over the wire for the licensing configuration for the software. So after I hit the checkbox, I'm going to hit submit. And for me, just in double checking sake, I always refresh to make sure that the check mark has been made for this software here. Okay, so it looks like Telnet is enabled. So that's all we need to do currently with the switch out of the box here to enable ourselves to start monitoring the switch in Network Manager. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to the network managing software, which is just a web-based GUI here on a Windows 10 machine. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to log in under System Admin and type in my password. So as you can see, there's nothing in our dashboard currently being used here. So we're going to get started. Now, the first thing I like to do is I like to go, and I'm an organizational person, so I like to know where my devices are with a group. And to do that, we go over here to Group Management. And the first thing I usually is I add the group. And what the first group name I'm going to put in here is _WINKLE group. And like I said, groups would give us the ability to organize our assets in a way that is for your end customer's sake and to easily identify areas to where devices are located. So I've created a WINKLE group. And from there, so now that we have a group, now that we have our switch enabled and ready to accept licensing, we need to actually discover that switch in Network Manager. So the next part we have to go to is our discovery. So here we are in Discovery, and with Network Manager, as you can see, the first thing we need to do is start discovering devices. And as you can see, I actually have a device profile already created in here, but I'll show you the details of it. So what I have in here is, I just call it, you can give it any name that you have. I'm just doing a simple discovery, and as you can see, here's the information on this that you can read. So device access profile defines a list of protocols to be used for discovering devices. Pretty straightforward. So what I have set up here is I'm going to be using SNMP in conjunction with Telnet. As you can see here, here's where we set up our SNMP settings, and as you can see, I have WINKLE, which is the community string that we created in the Stratix 5700. And down here is the Telnet. When I checked the box, this allows the connection to use the admin password that I have enabled in here with administrative rights in the Stratix 5700 to allow a connection over Telnet to send information over the wire to enable the license for the switch. Okay, so that's step one, is having device access profile to how we're going to discover the switch. So now what we have to create is a discovery profile. And now what a discovery profile is, as you can see here, it defines a mechanism by which the network or section of the network is discovered by the system. So here's where we actually are going through and discovering what our devices are out there. All right, so we can give it any name. I'm just going to call it Stratix 5700. Now there's different ways that you can discover this. You can do an IP scan, which is based on however your network is configured in your network adapter card. You can set a starting IP to an ending IP. And also way too is Cisco and many other switches out there have certain discovery protocols such as LLDP or CDP. In this case, we have CDP enabled on our Stratix 5700, so I'm just going to use a link layer protocol to discover the switch. And as I showed you before, I'm going to use the IP address of the switch to identify the switch I want to discover. Now, how we're going to discover it. So this is where that device access profile comes in. So I'm just going to enable our discover access profile, and as you can see, the following protocols will be discovered using these two to discover the devices that are out there. And obviously for organizational purposes, we're going to assign it to this group. So I'm going to hit save here. All right, so as you can see here, we have a discovery profile Stratix 5700 has been created. We're going to refresh to make sure that it's still there. And it is, and we're discovering it by link layer. Here's the IP address. So now let's discover our assets. So from there, we're going to hit scan now. All right, and so as you can see, the last run here. So if you click this link here, it'll take us to the description of what it's doing. And it'll take a couple, some time to discover, but what you can do is you can hit refresh here until we get this. What we want to see here is obviously we want to see a success. It says complete. You can actually see the details of it. So as you can see here, we've completed a discovery of the device, and this is actually my PC name, and it identified it as IPv4 address here. So it's actually discovered my PC on here. It discovered my switch. This is the host name of my switch. And then obviously, and I'll show you, and then it creates a topology based off this. And like I said, it has one neighbor, which again comes from the link discovery protocols that we use. And obviously there's some topology because it's just a computer it doesn't identify what it is. So now that we've identified and scanned for our assets out there, we're going to move to verifying our inventory of these. Okay, as you can see here, just by using the telnet and the SNMP, if you click on the network demo here, right now it's in an unlicensed state. Okay, so from here we've discovered a Stratix switch, and it's discovered by a multi-protocol that we used. It's unlicensed currently because we haven't assigned the FactoryTalk manager license yet. Sorry, I want to go to all devices here. So as you can see, it also picked up my computer on there as well. So it shows the vendor and the product ID just by hitting discovery. And like I said, this is unlicensed. This was without even purchased any sort of licensing yet. From there, what we can do is I usually like to go to licensed devices, and now we're going to actually assign a license to the Stratix 5700 so that we actually can monitor even more data on top of what we have. So we go here, we check this box. We're going to go to with selected, and then here's the option to change license state. We're going to change it to a license state. Now, basically what this error means, it says this action will make configuration changes. So what it's actually doing in the Cisco iOS, it's actually running some CLI commands in the background to enable this to work, and there's no write operations on an automation device, so just so you can do this, the idea of it is in a running system so that nothing goes down and affect anything. So in this case, yes, I want to move this to a licensed state. We are just in the network. So as you can see here, and it gives us transitioning to a licensed state. So we're going to go and see if we can get some details, but usually I can, if nothing pops up here, we can go back and see if it actually moves to the licensed state under our inventory tab. So we're still waiting for it. And again, this is normal. It takes some time to move it over depending on the speeds of your network. I'm using a USB to Ethernet converter, so this may take a little time. Okay, so there we go. So as you can see here in the state, now we've moved it from an unlicensed to a licensed state, which gives us the ability to actually see more information from this. So if I click on this now, so remember before how we had the unlicensed state and we couldn't really do much with it. Now we have the ability to monitor the health of the switch, the bandwidth, how long it's been up. We can actually see the recent activity. We have a physical device view, so we can see alarming. We can see what port. So as you can see here, I'm plugged into port 2. Some device overview information, network, the host name, the IP address, the product ID, the serial number, the MAC address, software version, very important. If you're calling in support and you need to get this information, this is a great way and quick way to get to everything. But what also does this entail? So we actually see some connected devices here. So as you can see here, here's the IP address of my computer and the MAC address. So we actually see what's connected to where. Interfaces, so we can actually see how it's configured. Auto duplex, the duplex setting, which is very important. So a lot of information that we have, what type of port style it is. There's copper. This also has dual purpose ports that we can put fiber SFP, so you can identify what ports are there and what the speeds are. Port forwarding, so MAC address, so you can see the MAC table to how the addresses are dynamically learned from ARP. So you don't have to go in the CLI now to show the MAC address table. We can actually identify this right here. And obviously you don't have to go into the device manager where it is as well, but it's one place for everything. And also we can see our VLANs created. Now, right now I'm only using the default VLAN, but if there were multiple VLANs, we can manage them and actually see what ports are assigned to those VLANs, which is very helpful. Events. So we have some events that you can see some configuration of things that are happening. Configuration archives. So now, what's usually the process to, back up a static switch? Usually, some people have an SD card. Some people, prefer to use a TFTP server to back it up to a text file. Many different ways you can do it. Well, now we have another option for you, and in one place you don't have to do it, and it's actually as simple as hitting backup now. So what we can do is actually right here, we are running through and we're backing up the switch current to date. And from here we can manage in our files of the network manager of the computer that it resides on a backup at the time. So here we have a master copy you can assign as well. And if anything goes wrong, if you decide to make a change in the future and you want to go back to your master copy, then you just hit this restore button and it restores the switch to its original configuration settings with the click of a button, all done within a licensing. And the last thing is if you have a precision time protocol enabled, this switch actually has is a PTP switch enabled, so you can see the grandmaster clock and time synchronization information for your network here. So these are all the features and things that you get with FactoryTalk Network Manager. I also want to show one thing really quick here, just kind of an overview of everything that kind of Network Manager has, just in quick, and there can be future videos of more details for each topic are needed. So actually, this is a topology, so logically, by default, it understands and creates a topology. So as you can see here, the more devices you have, the more connections that you have, you get a logical topology just from scanning your asset profiles. So you have topology, you have your dashboard, audit trails, so you can actually create users within FactoryTalk Network Manager to see and track what is being done in the switches. So very, very useful. No more chasing ghosts or who did what, who made changes. It's all right here for you. Actively monitor alarms from all your networks out there. So currently we don't have any alarms right now, but if there were any alarms in the switch, when we come back online, we can monitor all these alarms in one place instead of going to each individual device manager location per switch to identify what alarms are where and quickly resolve them. All right, we have our configuration archives and our settings, and I showed you the backup, PT, XGrid for Cisco security products. So a lot of features. Today I just wanted to capture how to assign a license and move forward. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation and found it helpful. Once again, my name is Keith Karras, Automation and Networking Specialist here at WINKLE Electric. To purchase a FactoryTalk Network Manager license and any other electrical or automation products, please visit us at www.winkle.com. Thank you.